Tomas had always believed that the darkest truths were the ones people whispered about but never dared to confirm. Yet nothing in his life had prepared him for the moment he discovered that Kat, the woman he trusted, defended, and built a future with, was responsible for Eva's disappearance. The realization struck him with the force of a violent collision, shattering whatever remained of the fragile stability he thought he had. His world, once predictable and manageable, twisted into a labyrinth of unanswered questions, suffocating guilt, and a growing storm of rage he could no longer contain. Eva had been a constant in his life, a gentle presence that grounded him in ways he never openly admitted. Her laughter, her vulnerability, her reliance on him, these moments had carved a quiet yet powerful bond that Tomas valued more deeply than he ever realized. Losing her had left him in turmoil, but believing she had been taken by some faceless threat allowed him to channel his fear into determination. Discovering that Kat had orchestrated the kidnapping, however, felt like a blade carving through every memory he had of their relationship. In the first days after his discovery, Tomas found himself replaying every moment he had spent with Kat, searching for signs he had missed. The affection she displayed, the concern she often expressed, the promises she made, everything now appeared warped, tainted by deception. His anger grew as he realized how easily he had been manipulated, how blind he had been to the shadows edging around Kat's behavior. The betrayal became not just an emotional wound but an accusation against his own judgment. That self-loathing fed into his rage, amplifying the sense of violation. Kat, meanwhile, felt her world collapsing under the weight of consequences she had long feared but desperately hoped to avoid. She had convinced herself that her actions were justified, that taking Eva was a necessary sacrifice for a future she believed Tomas deserved. She had convinced herself that the child stood as a barrier between her and the life she wanted, a life where Tomas's attention and commitment belonged solely to her. The jealousy she nurtured in silence had grown into a consuming obsession, one she no longer possessed the clarity to question. When Tomas discovered the truth, Kat's carefully constructed version of reality cracked. She sensed the shift in him before he uttered a single rejection. His distance, his coldness, the quiet hatred burning behind his gaze became unbearable reminders of what she had done. Instead of remorse, she felt an unexpected mix of panic and defensiveness. She told herself she had only acted out of love, that her intentions were pure even if her methods were flawed. But beneath these rationalizations pulsed a deeper fear, the fear of losing control over the person who had become the center of her identity. Tomas's internal conflict intensified as he began to unravel the motives behind Kat's actions. The more he examined her behavior, the more he recognized a darkness he had failed to acknowledge. Kat had always displayed a possessiveness he mistook for devotion, an intensity he interpreted as passion. Now he understood those traits for what they truly were, warning signs of someone whose love had hardened into obsession. Tomas felt disgusted by how deeply he had let her into his life, how willingly he ignored the small fractures in her personality. Beneath his growing fury lay a profound sadness. For the version of Kat he thought he knew, for the dreams he once shared with her, and for the innocence that had been ripped away from Eva. Eva's trauma remained an unspoken weight pressing on Tomas's conscience. Though she had been found and returned to safety, the damage lingered. He witnessed the fear in her eyes, the hesitation in her movements, the lostness that replaced her usual spark. Each moment he saw her suffering added a new layer to his anger, turning it from emotional into something dangerously close to destructive. The thought that Kat had caused this, intentionally, deliberately, filled him with a sense of moral outrage so powerful it threatened to swallow him whole. He knew he had to sever ties with her. But the decision, though necessary, tore at something inside him. Breaking up with Kat was not simply ending a relationship. It was dismantling a significant chapter of his life. Their intertwined histories, shared memories, and the intimacy they once enjoyed all became distorted, yet they still weighed heavily on his conscience. Tomas wrestled with guilt over the pain he was about to cause her, even as he recognized that her actions had left him with no alternative. The conflict between his compassionate nature and his moral convictions deepened his internal torment. Kat, sensing the inevitable, spiraled into emotional chaos. Her attempts to maintain control became increasingly erratic as she clung to the belief that she could still salvage what remained of their relationship. She convinced herself that Tomas's anger was temporary, that he only needed time to understand her reasoning. Denial clouded her mind, blinding her to the severity of her actions. The more Tomas withdrew, the more desperately she tried to pull him back, fueling a cycle of tension that pushed both into darker emotional territories. As Tomas began distancing himself physically and emotionally, Kat's world shrank. Her self-worth, which had become entirely dependent on Tomas's affection, deteriorated. She felt cornered, judged, condemned. Instead of accepting accountability, she fixated on the fear of abandonment, interpreting Tomas's rejection as a personal attack rather than a response to her betrayal. Her emotional instability grew unpredictable, swinging between regret, anger, and a dangerous longing for reconciliation that bordered on obsession. Tomas felt both repulsed by her desperation and burdened by it. His empathy, though strained, made the process of leaving her excruciating. But the memory of Eva, the trust she placed in him, the terror she endured, kept him anchored to his decision. He could not allow Kat's emotional manipulation to sway him anymore. The morality of the situation was too clear for him to ignore. Still, the act of walking away felt like tearing a piece of himself out of his chest, forcing him to confront a depth of sadness he had not anticipated. In the weeks that followed, their emotional states deteriorated further. Tomas became consumed by guilt and anger, struggling to reconcile his need for justice with his instinct for compassion. The emotional toll manifested in sleepless nights, a constant sense of dread, and the unsettling realization that the betrayal had changed him fundamentally. His trust in others became fragile, his patience thin, and his sense of emotional safety fractured. He felt haunted by shadows of what could have been, tormented by memories of intimacy now stained by deception. Kat plunged into a darker psychological space. The consequences of her actions surrounded her from every angle, yet she remained unable to fully grasp the magnitude of her wrongdoing. Instead of accepting responsibility, she clung to the belief that Tomas's departure was a punishment she did not deserve. Her self-loathing and resentment fused together, creating a volatile emotional state that left her isolated and unstable. She struggled to navigate the aftermath of her choices, incapable of understanding how her own desires had driven her to destroy the very relationship she tried so hard to possess. Friends, acquaintances, and outsiders began to whisper, their quiet judgments becoming another source of pressure that pushed the characters deeper into crisis. Tomas felt exposed by the scrutiny, as if the world was dissecting his private pain. Kat felt attacked, targeted by rumors that painted her as monstrous. These external forces compounded the internal turmoil each character already endured, creating a suffocating atmosphere where every emotion became amplified. The emotional distance between Tomas and Kat widened into a permanent chasm. Their final separation, though inevitable, was marked by a silence heavier than any confrontation could have been. The absence of words became a testament to the depth of betrayal and the impossibility of forgiveness. Tomas left behind the remnants of a relationship that once meant everything to him, carrying with him a mixture of sadness, anger, and the faintest hope that someday he might reclaim the pieces of himself that had been lost in the chaos. Kat remained alone in the aftermath, surrounded by the echo of choices she could no longer escape. The weight of her actions pressed on her like an unrelenting burden, forcing her to confront a future defined by consequences she brought upon herself. The breakup, though devastating, was a mirror reflecting her deepest flaws, her possessiveness, her desperation, her inability to accept boundaries. It revealed the fragility of her emotional foundation, exposing how easily it crumbled under pressure. Eva, though safe, carried scars that would shape her for years to come. Tomas's dedication to helping her heal became the one source of solace in his fractured life. Protecting her allowed him to redirect his rage into something meaningful, slowly transforming his pain into determination. Yet even in these moments of purpose, the shadow of Kat's betrayal lingered, a reminder of how easily trust could be shattered and how deeply love could be corrupted. The story of Tomas, Kat, and Eva became a quiet tragedy woven from the threads of misplaced love, broken trust, and irreversible choices. It revealed the darkness that can grow within ordinary hearts, the destructive power of jealousy, and the devastating consequences of manipulating another person's life. Their lives, once intertwined by affection, drifted into separate paths marked by regret, healing, and the haunting memory of a moment that changed everything. Their emotional turmoil did not resolve quickly. Tomas continued to grapple with trust issues, struggling to rebuild his sense of stability. Kat remained trapped in a cycle of self-destruction, unable to escape the echo of her own decisions. Eva slowly emerged from her trauma, though the fear and confusion lingered like a shadow she learned to navigate but could not fully dispel. And through it all, the truth remained: betrayal, once revealed, becomes a force that reshapes everything it touches. In Tomas's life, it became a wound that demanded patience and resilience to heal. In Kat's life, it became a mirror reflecting the damage she caused. In Eva's life, it became a terrifying memory slowly softened by time but never fully erased.